My colleagues, we are back from recess. Time is of the essence for engrossment and stuff like that. We have Senator Sabina. We are still on your bill. Is there any
I did.
objection to that?
No.
Or are there any objection to that? If there's no objection, then we can move on it.
It's not an objection, but
Okay.
a possible.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand and rise in support of this amendment, but would like to ask if I could do an amendment to this present amendment and delete the word incorporated and add beneficial to, and delete the word into. Because as it states now, that we're asking that a report be submitted highlighting the impact of the information gathered at the conference or the meeting has on the agency and how the information acquired will be incorporated.
So what is your amendment? So we have very
It would be to
specific.
delete incorporated into and change it to beneficial to the agency's function. I wouldn't want to go.
Do we have any objection from the floor? No objection? It's amended. Are we good?
Good, sir.
Do we have any, Senator Kelly?
I have a question, perhaps, or a suggestion. You know, having worked in some government offices myself and knowing some of the other programs that are out there, there are some programs where it's a requirement to once or twice a year, if not more, have to go to certain workshops or certain gatherings to hear information or to share information about their program. And then there may be several people who are required within that grant to go. And so, you know, I know that for some of those offices that have those kind of grant requirements where there might be several of them attending and they are required by the conditions of the grant to attend, those are the very same offices that are understaffed and overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do. So, I mean, one recommendation that I have is for the agency's director to be able to develop a plan that makes sense for their particular situation. Like in a situation like that, if there are 3 or 4 people who are required to go to this sort of a meeting, I'm not sure about each individual doing a separate report and taking 1 to 2 to 3 hours perhaps to get this done, where it might be done by a singular report. So maybe there's a way to amend this to just accommodate that there could be a group report if there's more than one individual going, or like I said, maybe to just allow that agency to say what makes sense and submit a plan or a report on what would make sense for their office.
Senator Kelly, if there's in a group, they can all sign together at the bottom if they need to, if they're all uniform, their report. So I think that could fix itself. I understand where you come from.
Right. I just want to ensure that there's that understanding and that it does not become something that is expected of each individual.
Okay, do you want to put something in as an amendment to that section, and then we can read it? Senator Sabina, do you have any recommendation on how you may want to amend it, if anything, to fulfill that intent of what Senator Kelly brought up?
I think your remedy would have been sufficient. I mean, I feel that, if you go to a conference, you may not go all to the same talk. So there should be at least some sort of report, at least sharing what they got from it and how they can incorporate it, or how it could be beneficial to the agency. So, I mean, it doesn't quite limit that.
A group report, correct?
I mean, potentially the individuals can collaborate on a report, but I feel that, the intent of this is to assure that the information is brought back to the group, the agency, so that that information can strengthen that agency, and it's not meant to be an impediment. So, the idea is that we're spending public funds, and it's a government asset.
Understood. So Senator Kelly, did you want to put something, an amendment there, all individuals / group traveling an amendment to fulfill your intent, or what you want?
Right, it could be something like that, or just to make sure it's clear so that nobody somewhere down the line starts to expect just from individuals. So it could be, shall submit a report individually or as a group. Or as you said, it could be all individuals or groups traveling for this purpose. Either could be a suitable amendment, perhaps.
So basically a / after the word individual, right? Okay. So that's an amendment. Is that acceptable to all? Are there any objection to that amendment, to the amendment? No objection? Senator Torres, you have your hand up, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to express that as a person who's managed several government agencies, this amendment is very impractical and very unreasonable, and there's nothing to prevent an agency director from establishing policies within their agency to accomplish a best for all kind of effort. But really, this is just so cumbersome, and I object to it because I would hate for this to be a mandate in the Budget Act. I think that it can be a policy, but certainly not in a Budget Act. And to mandate it is just, as a former director of several agencies, I'm sorry, but it really is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Are there any objection to the amendment? There are two. There is. Senator Lee, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, last year we did include in the Budget Act reporting requirements for travel. And so that was very specific as to travel reports that would be of publicly funded travel that would be submitted to the legislature on a quarterly basis. And it applied to government entities, and it required us to, or travelers to submit information like the name of the traveler, the source of the funds, the purpose of the travel, and the total cost of the travel. And I think those things, I'm not sure, I guess that my question is for OFB, maybe Mr. Guerrero, if we could just see if that language is still in this current bill?
Senator Lee, I'll ask the OFB to respond because it's codified. It's already in the law. So I'll have the OFB speak to that, to what basically Senator Parrish would like.
Yes, Senator, if I'm not mistaken, the reporting requirements for all government travel of employees going abroad using government funds, they must, I believe, within 10 days, file a trip report of their travel.
Senator Sabina, did that fulfill what your intent? It's in the law already, that part of the travel, you must submit a trip report, a travel report.
Yeah,
so it meets that exactly what you wanted to put in.
Okay, yeah.
So you would like to withdraw this?
Wait, point of information. The trip requirement for a travel is just a report saying you went from point A to point B and met with someone. What the good senator's amendment does here, it actually provides more information to be given, a report to be given, and it says, and how the information acquired will benefit the agency's functions. There's nothing in the current law that says that, and this would allow this amendment would allow that to provide more information and make it a law. So, and it has may be presented in there too, so I don't see any harm of it, but I do see that there's a benefit, to the agency and a requirement. Because it's not just a matter of, hey, I went to, point A, point B, landed in San Francisco, went to there, and that's it. So this is a good piece of, a good amendment, and I support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator, if I just elaborate my earlier statement, I believe in the report, the trip report, that the employee is required to submit details, exactly the purpose of the trip, and explain exactly where he went, where she went, what he did, what he gained from it, what type of correspondence they obtained. I mean, it's a very detailed report that they're supposed to submit. And along with that, to justify the report, I believe you're also supposed to attach your boarding pass and any type of receipts that you may have incurred as a result of the trip. There's even the provision in the travel that says that if you spent more than the per diem that was granted, you are also entitled to request reimbursement. But it's all part of that initial report that you submit upon returning from that trip. But it is a very detailed report.
Thank you, Steve, for that. But, you know, the word beneficial to the agency is another requirement. Okay.
Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of inquiry. Does this include the autonomous agencies and the judiciary branch? I think it'll include the judiciary, but how about autonomous agencies? Would that include GPA, GWA, GIAA, the ports? Because if not, I say let's put them in there.
Senator Parrish, you have any comment to make so we can close
Mr.
this
Chair,
amendment?
in this budget bill alone, actually, if you look on page 144, there is reporting requirements for travel included in the budget bill. So perhaps we can put it there instead of this section.
No, we can leave it here. We already
leave it
passed
here?
that, so whatever you want to add, we can add it here and it'll just move on.
Oh, just at the very end of the budget bill on page 145.
145, so
There is a travel reporting, so if we want to just include it in that section,
we can. If
versus
that's
the
what they're
section.
choosing, as long as we all understand that, if it passes, it goes to page 145.
that's
Right?
fine. That's
Okay.
totally fine.
Are there any objection to this you have an amendment? Okay. She wanted to make sure they included all, they include, well, maybe, Senator, you just wanted to add, Senator Nelson, Vice Speaker, at the end, to include all GovGuam entities, right? Maybe? And autonomous? Do we have any objection to that adding? If they're going to write it, they're going to print it out, but My colleagues, we have returned, we're back from recess. Senator Perez, if you could,
Yes,
Withdraw?
Mr. Chair, we'll revisit this amendment at the last page where.
okay, so we're
it's
going to
under-
withdraw it because they're rewriting it all so that
Sure.
it'll be a new amendment, right?
Okay, thank you.
Their motion to withdraw this amendment? No objection, so ordered. We are now at, let's see, still on 133. And we have, we have three amendments by Senator Moylan on 133. Which one, Senator Moylan, are you going to start with? So we'll know which one to hold on to our hand.
Lines 4 through 8, page 133.
4 to 8, okay.
Okay,
133.
ready, set? Brief and to the point, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The amendment is to delete subsection J of section 1, chapter 13. Basically talking about executive security functions of GPD, providing executive security to the governor while traveling off island. Just a brief summary of why this amendment was authored. Basically, Mr. Chair, it's how much does this cost the taxpayers? I have no idea. And not to say I disagree with security measures, that's not the problem. But when these officers from GPD go off island and support for the executive office off-island trips, do they carry weapons? Are they on 24 hours? I don't know. But one thing I was able to experience when I went to Ponape on the recent trip, which I paid for, I was able to meet some security details that took care of some really important people over there. And they were high-ranking dignitaries like from Russia and from Germany and from Japan. And I'm sure the FSN president was very concerned, and security was offered, armed security by the FSN government while traveling over there. And possibly that could be something we can look at also. If security is offered in these foreign countries, we can look at it. It's not about not providing security, it's about providing savings for our taxpayers. And savings that could be used by GPD to obtain more officers for the security of our folks here on Guam, to keep our community safe, or savings that can go to textbooks for Department of Education. So it's not that the security is not needed, but can we look at other means to providing that security? And in that case, in my experience in FSM, it was provided and it was really good. So, and I just want to point out, it's not about our current executive. It's not about our past executive, and it's not about the future executive. It's about our budget and how we can help our taxpayers and utilize our resources in this economy that is supposedly going to be flat, and how we can help our people with maybe extra security here through savings we can find through Guam Police Department for our community, or more books for our kids at Department of Education. So I offer this amendment. I'm looking forward to comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Do we have any comments or questions any of the members who would like to proffer to this amendment? Do we have an objection to this? We have an objection to this amendment. All in favor of this amendment, which is to delete? Yes, there's an objection, yes. Please, all in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Senator Moylan, your next amendment, which is, which one? You got two?
Next amendment is line 9, page 133. This one may even go even quicker. Let's see how we do. Okay.
Is this the one with the phone, or?
No, this is per diem.
Per diem.
Yes. So I'm offering to amend by adding line 9 on page 133. So if we're following along on the amendment. It's referring to per diem. It's line 9, page 133. The top section reads, Section 1.1, and these whole bunch of one subsection 23104A of Chapter 23, Title 5 Guam Code annotated is hereby to amend to read as follows. So on the bottom, I hope everybody received the amendment. I'll just summarize it. It's to bring equality for our government folks that travel off island. So the items 1 and 2 below, you can see the disparity in per diem basic rates for certain elected officials, like the governor, lieutenant governor, and members of the legislature, and judges, mayors, and so forth. The percentage of per diem received is 130%. But yet, if you're not in that, or if you're in another category, for example, executive assistants, special assistants, directors, deputy directors, member of board of directors, and authority, line agencies, and so forth, you're at 125%. So why? Why when we're going to go to the same place? Why when supposedly we're going to stay in the same hotel? And why when we're going to eat at the same restaurants? Because I'm a higher official, does that mean I require a softer bed or a better view or a steak and the other person doesn't? So I like to see some equality when traveling off island. I think we're all performing the same mission, and it should be equal, and there shouldn't be any disparity. If for example, I'm required to buy a certain meal to entertain somebody because I'm in a position where I'm an executive, for example, well, then I can simply come back and in my trip report note that bringing back my receipts. Here's my receipts for that meal I purchased, and therefore I can get reimbursed from that. But just to start off right away and to say you get more money than I do going to the same place and staying at the same hotel and going to the same conference, I think there's disparity, and I'd like to bring some equality to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there an objection to this motion? We do have one objection. All in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Senator Moylan, your next amendment.
Thank you. We're going quicker and quicker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, page line 133. Now we're into wireless communication here. Basically, I'm just scratching out where the governor and the speaker and the legislature and the chief justice and the presiding judges of the Supreme Court removing their authorized, if they authorize for wireless communication. Now, this isn't about, it's nothing more, but just basically it's about cost-saving measures. You know, I do recognize that the government funds for wireless communications for emergency personnel. So fine, have the emergency people use those phones. Specifically in the health and the public safety, that's guaranteed. They're going to need that also. The public needs access to these folks for sure, and in some cases, 24/7. But you know, I differ about providing such service for elected officials or even the highest heads of judiciary. And now, unless Homeland Security says, hey, we got something coming down here, we got to get some phones out, then of course, right? And we got federal funds to do that. I'm also thinking even why mayors or vice mayors would need these, you know, I'm contemplating that as well. So I'm leaving them off the list, actually. But this is cost-saving measures and nothing more. Our economy we could do much better, and we project that our economy is flat or barely going up, and I think that people are looking for cost-saving measures, and this is one good example of where we can cut costs. So I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Vice Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of inquiry. What is the cost-saving measure? What is the dollar figure for this?
Well,
What is the cost savings that you're referring to?
I don't have a dollar figure, but let's say if it's $5,000 a year, it's still a cost-saving measure. I don't know. And if it's a government phone and if I dropped it and it cracked, I can get a replacement for it. If I want an upgrade for it and the government's paying for it.
$125.
Mr. Chair.
Or if I'm looking off island and I'm traveling off island and I've wanted to use, what do you call it, data roaming, I don't know who gets that bill as well. So bottom line is there will be cost savings because it costs the government money. If you cut it off for those, we'll save some money. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair.
thank you. Senator, Vice Speaker? It's
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything against this amendment, but I will say that if we come forward and we say that this is a cost-saving measure, and if this has been in existence in 2019, 2018, 2017, we should have a number because we need to understand the impact. If it's $2,000, then it's $2,000. But if it's $300,000 in overtime of executive security, then that's relevant too. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
So, Senator Kelly?
Sejus Masi, Mr. Chair. I just have a point of information. You know, in looking at those that were crossed out, I definitely agree with the former speaker that understanding the impact of this is important if we're talking about large amount or small amount. But really, at the root of my point is a feeling like with these particular heads of our government, they're some of the ones who declare if we're in a state of emergency or not. And so I just see value in having potentially an official phone to get a hold of them on, that we need access to them at particular times. And, you know, we've had emergencies. We had the memorial not too long ago for the Korean air crash. And so communication was key. And so at this point in time, it just seems like those types of communication are part of our daily lives. And when we're talking about some of these people in leadership positions, they're the ones that are going to be determining emergency. They're going to be making those emergency decisions, and we absolutely need to have access to them. So I just wanted to point those out also, and I didn't hear, so if I could ask the author of this, did he say that he intentionally did not include the head of Homeland Security? Because I think that position may not be on the list. And if it's not in our list, well,
Senator,
anyways.
okay,
But-
you're asking a question of the sponsor. Am I correct, Senator Kelly? Or no?
Hungin,
Again, Senator Moylan, will you yield to the question why Homeland Security is not listed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. We're striking out the governor, the lieutenant governor.
the question was, I wanted to understand if I had heard him correctly. Did he say something about the head of Homeland Security being on the list or not being on the list? That was my question.
My statement was, now unless there is a Homeland Security requirement for the type of phone for the governor has to carry, then I'm open to that.
Thank you. Are you done, Senator Kelly?
Well,
'Cause I
I was talking
understand
about
an
the head of
objection.
Homeland Security, so that absolutely did not answer my question.
Understood.
So I was wondering if he had said something about the head of Homeland Security. I'll read the list again, but I'm not sure that they're on this list.
No, they're not. They're not on the list.
So-
All right. Do you have anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to move to the speaker. Senator Kelly, do you have anything else? Otherwise, we'll move to the speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and I don't even know if I can comment on this because the position of Speaker of the Legislature is included, but I never knew that the Speaker's cell phone bills could be paid because I've always paid for my own phone, and at least in the last 8 months, but even as a senator, we pay for our own phones. But I really think somebody like GVB should be included in the exemption because of what the utilization of telecommunications and what they need to do to market themselves, especially as we work closely with Asia, and they're not included in the exemption. So I want to make an amendment to this amendment to include GVB as exempt. They're not included. That would be my own amendment. But, oh, yeah, I'll just proffer it as.
So are you objecting to this
I'll do a
amendment?
separate, Mr. Chair, I'll do a separate amendment or ask my colleague to do it because this one, includes me.
My understanding,
It's a
I think,
conflict.
from Senator Kelly, is that an objection in general or what? Or are you
Well, I was
accepting
saying it was
this?
a point of information. And then it had a question to it. So I guess I would object just in that I really feel that the leaders, we've seen them have to be
Yeah.
in immediate communication with us as they were dealing with the Korean airline crash and other things like that. So I just worry about that, and I just would want to make sure that we do have that official communication.
There's an
ability.
objection. I think everybody's raised their hands. There's an objection to the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Nobody raised their hand. We are now at Senator Teresa Lai. You have, ma'am. No, well, I want, the amendment has failed. I asked, okay, so I have only 2 amendments on my table.
I do.
If you have an amendment, please, even you, Madam Speaker.
It's one word,
Oh, one word?
GVB.
On where?
To have them
No,
included in the section
No,
to be
that
exempt.
that's gone. That's not an issue. There's- If you're creating your own amendment, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Feel free, but we have amendments that are live on my table. and
Okay.
I'd like to go now to Senator Teresa Lai. You have one that, the travel or invitation U.S. Congress.
Thank you,
Ma'am?
Mr. Chair. So this would be an amendment to our travel policy on the list of exemptions of who this Appropriations Act, whose travel will be paid during the fiscal year 2020 through government funds. I'm suggesting that we add a new subsection K, travel to testify at the invitation of U.S. Congress on legislation that is supported by the Guam Legislature as indicated by legislative resolution. And if I could explain, it's a very rare thing to be invited by the U.S. Congress to testify, but I know that it's happened on our work claims even in the past. And it's happened, I think, recently for that also. And it's also, my own experience with it was when Mr. Robert Celestial was invited to testify at Congress on the RICA legislation. And he had established a relationship with them and subsequently was invited to testify because of his work in this area and representing all of us. So, but I learned at that time that Congress would not pay for them to travel, and it didn't seem appropriate that we use our legislative funds for someone else to travel either. So he really had to use his own personal funds. And I know that the Pacific Association of Radiation Survivors, the PARS group that promotes the RICA, you know, they are really doing the work to promote that here and in Congress, that they had to raise the money to send him. So this is it doesn't exactly say who's going to pay it, but it's just an authorization that if it's appropriate for some agency to pay it, that they can pay if they get that rare invitation for somebody to attend testimony. That's the intent. I hope it doesn't get abused, but that's the intent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Terlai.
No objection.
Are there any objection to that
No
amendment?
objection.
No objection. Motion passes. We are now at Senator Amanda Shelton. Ma'am, you have the As a matter of fact, let me just,
Is it up to?
let me just, we're at page, before you start, Senator Amanda, we're at page 134, section 3. Are there any questions before we proceed to Senator Amanda?
Yes, I did have an amendment regarding the.
For section 3? Page 134? Or section 4?
No, it was regarding the wireless communication on section 2. And you told me to write out the amendment, Mr. Chair, regarding to make sure that the wireless communication will be allowed for GVB. So they should be listed as the shall not apply to, and then maybe on line,
So you have your
Anywhere between-
amendments to coming. So
Yes.
we'll bookmark that. Let's move along. So are you on the same section? Okay,
Or Homeland, the head of Homeland Security.
you want to add Homeland?
Yeah,
Do you have that with you? I don't have that on my table.
right,
So
so
we'll
it's being
bookmark
typed
that.
up.
We'll bookmark
Yeah.
that. We are now
Safe
on
and
section 3.
Homeland Security.
Okay, let's, folks, if you don't have it, we'll bookmark it. We need to complete this because we're just waiting for, okay, we're in section 3. Are there any questions for section 3? There being none, section 3 is closed. We're in section 4. Section 4, are there anything on section 4? None. Section 4 is closed. We are now on administrative provisions on page 136. Do we have any question for,
Well, Mr. Chair, I have an amendment for page 135. It's not section 4, but it's to add a new section 5. You recognized me earlier, but
what was that again, one more time?
you recognized me earlier for
Yes.
a new section 5, an amendment, if I could speak on that.
That's on page 135.
135,
I haven't
before-
yet said that because I was just about ready to state that for 135. Okay? And I like to advise my colleagues, on the issue with the wireless communication, that section is closed. Unless you want to reconsider to go back to section, even though I stated that we're going to bookmark it, I've been reminded that we're closed section 2 on page 133. If you want to reconsider it, then ask for that motion, and if there's sufficient votes, then you can override the presiding officer, myself. Other than that, I know. We're back from recess. We have the amendment from Madam Speaker, and it's just to add the Guam Visitors Bureau on Section 2, 133. Are there any objection?
No objections.
Motion passes. Now we're at Senator Amanda Shelton.
Situas Masi, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment for page 135, line 3. It's to add a new section 5. This amendment is very simple. Section 5 for cockfighting. The enforcement of the federal ban on cockfighting is enacted by Federal Public Law 115-334, the 2018 Farm Bill, shall be the lowest priority of the government of Guam. Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the co-sponsors of this amendment, the Speaker, Senator Rogel, Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano, and Senator Jim Moylan, who are also co-sponsors of a resolution that was authored in this legislature that supports cockfighting on island. And the federal ban on cockfighting was not enacted by the people of Guam or its representatives, and it's being done against our will. A lot of us have had the opportunity to listen to these cockfighters express their dismay with this ban that is coming up in December 2019. And they call our offices, they approach us in the street, we hear from them quite often. And with the cash strap on our budget, we're here trying to cut as much as we can and limiting some of our agencies that need it the most. We cannot and we should not be on the hook to pay for another federal unfunded mandate with our public safety dollars. So our our representative could not vote on this ban, our taxpayers did not approve this ban, and our taxpayers do not want this ban. So to use our money in the government, our public safety dollars to enforce a federal law would be taxation without representation. And I ask my colleagues to please support this amendment to make it the very lowest priority of the government of Guam to enforce this cockfighting ban from the Farm Bill. So just Masi, Mr. Chair.
Is there any objection to this motion?
No objection.
There is one objection. All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Motion passes. We are now at Senator, we are at page 136. Are there any questions on page 136? General Administrative Provisions, page 136. Ma'am? Senator Lee?
Situas Masi, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there was an amendment that was passed out, I believe, yesterday, and it begins with a section, and it's blank, reinstatement of employee increments, Mr. Chair. I believe it belongs in this section.
It's in reference to the increments as we already posted on the earlier? And that's already passed, and that has to do with the AG? So that's done?
Was it the exact same language that the AG implemented, or was it different language?
It was...
Or that the AG suggested?
It was what the AG suggested. Yeah, it became, it was at that, it reinstated it all. And it declared the reinstatement. Okay?
Thank you.
We're now on page 137. Any question? Nothing? 138. Fund reversion? No comment? No questions? Close. 139. General Fund Transfer Authority of the Governor? You have a question, ma'am? Page 139, Section 8, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, can I just make an amendment to add public health and GMH in there on that list?
Oh, the fund transfer? To be inclusive?
That they're exempt from fund transfer out on the bottom, the last paragraph of that section. You're on Section 8, right?
Yes.
Yeah, on the last paragraph, they have a list of those who are exempt from funds being transferred out.
Senator Chulai, could you state again, what are you're trying to prevent any any funds coming out of GMH and public health is what you're asking for, right?
That's right. So currently, there's a whole long list of DOE, the judiciary, the legislature, OFB, mayor's council, public defender, ancestral lands, Chamorro Land Trust, office of the AG, office of public accountability. I just want to add Department of Public Health and Guam Memorial Hospital. Just because in this fiscal year, Mr. Chair, it maybe wasn't necessary in other fiscal years, but in this fiscal year, public health's budget is very short. And so we're trying to allow them maximum flexibility within their budget. We just want to make sure no money gets transferred out of their budget.
All right. I'm going to ask the panel to comment to what you're asking for, because the transfer authority of any funds originates from the administration, and they can give us some thought to that concern, that amendment.
I'm looking at the public health budget, and unless I missed something, I don't see a continuing appropriation. So we have, we just gavelled on the fund reversion part. I think you,
So you're saying that's what they need? They don't have the ability to use their 2019 lapses, public health?
there's no continuing appropriation. And we gavelled on the fund reversion part.
But it's not a special fund, so,
Well, you know, there's Healthy Future Fund reversion, right? So the portion that they get from Healthy Future Fund, right, that goes back in.
all right, so,
We don't touch GMH.
all right. Can I just, then, Mr. Chair, at the end of this, I'm going to try to make an amendment to add to the end of this chapter that exempts public health from either, or, I don't know, Mr.
Continuing.
Carlson, can you help me with the language? Should it be,
A continuing resolution so that
Oh,
they keep the
continuing
funds. That's
appropriation?
appropriation.
yes, I thought
what
we
he
did
was
that, but
asking.
okay, I'm going to double check, and thank you.
All right, we're done with 199, 139. We are now at 140. Any question, 140? None? 141 is continuation of the staffing pattern. We are now 142, appropriation allocation report. Any question? No questions? We are now on section 13 of, we're at section 12, and now we're at section 13? Okay, everybody was still on track? We're in section 13 now, 143. Are there any questions? It's closed. We are now on section 14, appropriation reserve report. No questions. We are now in section 15, quality reports of medical referral office. Go for it. I don't think you have any amendments. Medical referral. Nothing? We are now on section 16, audited financial statement supplemental information. Do we have any question for the audited financial statement supplementary information? There being none, we are now at section 17, reporting requirements for travel. There, now we're on, is this the area that you wanted, Senator Sabina? Okay, and you have submitted your amendment with all the changes. My colleagues, do you have the amendment in front of you? And if you do, it's for page 145, line 4, which is after the word cost of travel, is an addition. Do we have any we discussed this earlier. Senator Torres? Yes, you object? Are they, okay, there's an objection. We all understand this? All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, motion passes. We're on section 18, Guam Fire Department, Customs, and any questions? Yes, ma'am. We're in section 18, we're on the last page, 145, right before we discuss your amendment that we have on the table. Okay? So section 18 is done. Now I would recommend that we discuss your amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Before we go to server.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
And I know I need, and notwithstanding the rules, again, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to take a little bit of the money that puts the legislature above the 2019 level and appropriate it to the Guam Memorial Hospital for medical equipment and supplies, including anesthesia machine and dialysis machines. Now, at the risk of, you know, I do this with all due respect. I understand, you know, all my colleagues, everyone's working very hard. They have sacrificed, you know, a reduction in salary, you know, below very many other people in the government of Guam, and we know that from looking at all the staffing patterns, and that we're all in need of staff. I'm going to vouch for that, but I still just feel very badly that we're, you know, when you look across the board and when we're asking, you know, these agencies to toe the line at 2019 levels, that that's really the only basis for it. And I feel like the public will be very much happier to, you know, bear whatever they have to bear when we are also doing the same, Mr. Chair.
Understood. Senator Terlai, I know you stated notwithstanding, that's an appropriation measure. We passed that. We already adopted the Guam Legislature's budget. You're asking to go back, and I'm going to have to rule you out of order unless the members here would like to overrule me, then we can move from there. Is there a motion to overrule me?
Well,
We have.
yes, I would make
Yes.
that motion. I didn't
Yes.
think,
All right.
I hoped it wouldn't be necessary, but yes, I will make that motion.
Well, I'm trying to be as close to consistent as possible. There's a motion to overrule me. All in favor to overrule me, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Ladies and my colleagues, we are now on 145, section 19. We have completed the budget review and in deliberation and discussion. Senator Rangel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to rise from the Committee of the Whole with the recommendation to place Bill 186-35 COR as amended and further amended in the Committee of the Whole to the third reading file.
Are there any, of course. Are there any objection? No objection. We are now in recess.
need to Y mi 85 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I will recognize Senator Joe San Augustine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to report back to the body Bill number 186-35 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and further amended in the Committee of the Whole, with the recommendation to place on the third reading file and to do pass.
On that motion, Senator San Augustine, it was just to recommend to put into the voting file, to the
Yes.
third reading.
Yes, that's why I said to place on the third reading file.
Yes, just
And to
to
do
place
pass.
in the third reading
That's correct.
file.
Yes, ma'am.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Colleagues, there's several steps that have to be taken after this from the clerk's reconciliation of the bill, the OFB's reconciliation with the clerks, then working closely with legal, then working closely with legal and the clerks, then getting it presented to us. So at this time, I'm going to say that Assistant Majority Leader Senator Marsh Teichner, if you may, please put us into recess until Saturday at 9:30 so that we can come and get copies and look over the engrossed version, and then PM so that we can vote at 9:55. So just put us into recess. PM, 9:30 PM on Saturday. Please. Senator Marsh Teichner, you recognize Assistant Majority Leader.
Saina Maasi, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, excuse me. I move that we go into recess until 9:30 PM on Saturday.
What date is that? August what? 31st? August 31st.
August 31st.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. We are in recess. Si Diyos masi.